Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. Hello, hello. Welcome back to Big Fat 5, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum and a proud member of the Drum Click Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ben Hilsinger, and this week's guest is Joe Plummer. Joe has played drums for Modest Mouse, Cold War Kids, The Shins, and many more, in addition to releasing his own album, Hue Time, with Dale Crover and Cody Willis. Basically, he's a really cool guy. He's the epitome of a working drummer, and I love the personality he brings to any band he signs on with. He's also the host of his own podcast called Tour Stories, which we discussed towards the end of this episode. But please enjoy my conversation with Joe about the main influences that shaped him into the very sought-after drummer he is today. Cheers! Oh, and happy holidays. So I know you played in the band Bare Minimum, and
yeah. How'd you know that?
Is it true? Research, man. I'm a creeper. But is it true that you went on one of the Foo Fighters' first tours?
We did. Yeah, we opened for him.
How was that working with obviously William, who's amazing, and then of course Dave? Playing with two of the best drummers to do it. How intimidating was that?
It was great. I mean, at that point, William had been a big cheerleader of Bare Minimum, and William and all of the Bare Minimum guys, I think every single day for 3 years spent all of those days together. So we were pretty close friends, and then of course me and William were super drummer friends, and I was around. Well, William and I were friends, or pre-Foo Fighters during Sunny Day and the whole transition and stuff, and it was exciting. It was so fucking exciting. And also Dave kind of crept into our friendship circle as well, and it's just like, and to a point where you forget he's Dave Grohl. And he also is, I think, a fantastic human being in my experience with him over the last 25 years. And so that first tour was incredible. There was also Adam, Shudder to Think, was in the middle slot. So it was kind of fucked up seeing all those insane drummers every night. I heard the very first note of the very first show with them in Denver, Colorado. It was just one of these, big cymbal smashes, and broke my kick drum pedal. Dave's guitar tech at the time came running out and fixed my pedal before I even knew what was happening. So,
yeah, that sounds like something that would happen to me.
Yeah.
So you were still living up in Seattle at that point, and then you moved down to L.A., and I want to play a song. I think this is, I've messed up with so many drummers, Mark Juliana including. I played a song that wasn't him, but I'm pretty sure this is you. And I'll just play it, and then you can maybe talk about the experience of finally making money in music, felt like.
Mm-hmm. Sounded like the Replicants.
Yes, it was. It was Sicilian Defense by Replicants' second album.
Yes. One of my favorite recording experiences of all time.
Why was
Probably
that?
my favorite recording experience. That was me and Brant Sandino and Justin Trosper making a record. I did live in LA and Seattle around. I was moving back and forth at that time. I remember the first New Year's I was in LA was, I think, the first show that we played in Seattle. But that was me and Brant and Justin. We made that record probably over the course of 3 months. I was driving back and forth to Olympia, and Justin was just getting command on the studio down there, Unwound Studio. And we were all just learning everything and writing songs at the same time. And we were so aligned with our musical interests at the time. It was, it was just one of those fucking things that just flowed.
Yeah.
And it was just fun. And there was never any self-consciousness about anything. And it was just incredible.
Yeah, the older you get, it's hard to find people that are on the same page. It's financially, schedule-wise, creatively. You look back on those and it's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
But so let's just get into your top 15, I would assume.
Yeah. Or we can keep it to 5. I just couldn't decide.
Dude, I'm with you. But the first one is a specific groove that completely changed the way you think about drums. And you said it was Glenn Cochi from the song I'm Trying to Break Your Heart by, of course, Wilco off Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. So do you want me to just play a little bit of it and then we can talk about it afterwards? Or do you want to go the other way around?
No, let's hear a little bit.
All right, let's do it. So insane.
Who the fuck does that? Who decides to do that? And then it becomes the groove of the song, and it's a fill.
Yeah.
I mean,
the engineer's like, hey, Glenn, so are you ready to record now? Like, no, that's the part I want to play.
Yeah. The first time I heard that, I mean, just as I just experienced it, it makes me laugh. When you first hear it, it sounds ridiculous. If you're a drummer and you hear it twice, you're like, whoa, that's fucking genius.
Yep.
And, he's playing over the bar. At the end of it, it's a fill, and it ends up being the groove. And then one of the greatest things about that groove is he does play it straight. He plays a straight rhythm in the song, but you still have that groove in your head over his just straight part. Mm-hmm. And I had never thought of that. When was that? I don't know how long ago that was in my life.
I believe that was 2002 is when it came out, but I don't know when you heard it for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was when I definitely had heard it for the first time. And I just never thought about playing drums that way. Mm-hmm. It's a drum fill. Yeah. It's a groove. And somehow it sticks in your head. It's like a hook. It's crazy.
And the first time you hear it, you have no idea where the one is. Like that little clicky or kind of tap thing. Like, is the downbeat, is the upbeat? And then, honestly, as of right now, I still don't necessarily know. But Glenn knows, and that's okay with me. So
I just watched him play it 2 months ago.
Do you follow him on Instagram?
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, if you're ever not inspired, just go on his Instagram, and it's just like little pockets of kind of what you're talking about right now. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And yeah, you can take 5 seconds of that and go to town.
Yeah.
So, next one, your favorite fill, choice, moment from a certain record. And again, I'll preface this like I always do. I guarantee if I were to have if I would have contacted you a week from now, your choices would probably be different. Mine would.
Yes.
I mean, I've done my version of this podcast 3 or 4 times, and it's always different. But the first one, Joe Morello, the Take 5 solo. And I'm trying to think, I don't know if I got the right one, because obviously on Spotify, which is unfortunately the monster that is Spotify, it's where I play most of these things. And is it the Dave Brubeck band that he's in? Okay, cool.
Yeah. And it is the original recording of his, I mean, it's a fill, but it's the solo. That particular thing will probably come up a lot in this conversation. And
sure.
Is
it the one at the beginning where he's just playing by himself, or is it it's the actual solo? It kind of
solo.
Okay.
That is, again, it's kind of like a long stretched out fill, but I can just hear all the fills in it, and it's interesting because it is also just single, largely single notes. Towards the end, he does other stuff, but in my head, I just think of it as this fill behind this 2-minute fill behind a piano in 5.
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a fill guy in the sense I like them. I just don't think about them that much. But I think of things that function as fills. And initially when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the intro to a Black Flag song called Nothing Left Inside.
All right, let me see if I can find that.
It may be a tape manipulation, or it may be a drum fill, or...
There we go. Let me just play that real quick.
Yep.
That's so awesome.
You know what I mean? So even that, if let's say that's a drum intro, let's say by definition that is just a drum beat intro, but there is a fill that goes into the song, obviously, and it is a retardando triplet, and it also sounds like the tape fucking slows down, and I don't think that's that. I think Greg Ginn is plugging in his guitar or something. It's really weird. That is one of my favorite fills of all time.
I actually want to hear that one more time.
Yeah. Try to catch up with how many times I've listened.
Yeah.
Isn't that gorgeous?
That's beautiful, yeah.
It's great. I want Kendrick Lamar to hear that. It's one of my favorite records, but that in particular, that intro is crazy. And you can hear his black dot drum heads and everything.
And you also said Janet Weiss of Slater-Kinney. You said just her fills in general. Was there a particular song?
I can't think of any. I spent a lot of time drum tacking for Slater-Kinney and some time drum tacking for Quasi. So I've seen Janet. I've seen Janet play a lot of drums. We were roommates for a little while, and and the thing that is always stuck with me about her fills is she likes drum fills, if I may speak for her, and really celebrates them and kind of doesn't give a fuck and always lands on her feet. Not that it's like untechnical or super technical. It's just they're wild and they're super fun, and it's basically like drumming should be fun. Drum fills should be fun. Drum fills should be exciting. Fucking just do it. And she does it in such a way that is always so, it's just impressive. And anytime I try to steal that vibe or something, and I'll either try to tighten it up or I'll blow it.
Yep.
I mean, not 100% of the time, but that's the special thing about, I think, her idea of drum fills. That's always stuck with me and influenced me in one way or another.
Did you tech just in between touring jobs, or is that before really getting going with...
Yeah, this was in 2000, and I was just starting to play with Blackheart Procession and touring a lot. But when I was home and had time, I would go out with them. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes, I think a couple times, like the Replicants opened for Quasi. A couple different varieties of nerding out on drums with Janet.
Yeah, I've never toured as a drum tech, but it's never something I think about when I have time between tours. But it would be fun.
It was fun. I did that a little bit for her. We used to go to the Crystal Ballroom when I lived in Portland, when I was called upon. And I'm not a technical tech, but I can help people out. Mm-hmm. And the only other drum tech job I ever had was drum teching for William and Dave Grohl at the same time at Madison Square Garden. That was it.
That's an okay name drop, I guess.
Yeah, they were in David Bowie's band, and I was sitting in between them waiting for the drums to fall over.
Can we just? I do want to water that. What was that? Describe that scene.
It was this again was early on Foo Fighters. I don't know if they had just been touring a ton. It was winter, and we had been touring with them opening, so we were all pals. And then I think it was winter time, and it was David Bowie's birthday party, his 50th birthday party, which he decided to throw at Madison Square Garden, and he invited the Foo Fighters and The Cure and Lou Reed and all these Prince, all these people to play with him and play these songs. So that was the idea. And I was hanging around at where the Foo Fighters practiced, and Dave, not William, asked me, he's like, "Hey dude, check this out. Fucking David Bowie asked us to play for him." And he's like, "Do you want a drum tech for William?" And it was just like casual, And I was like, "Fuck yeah." And then next thing you know, like the Foo Fighters management's calling me, and they're like, where do you... And I don't... I hadn't really been in the serious rock and roll world at that point. And they're like booking me flights, and that was kind of it. And I didn't know anything. Me and William flew over on the same flight, got to Manhattan, partied, had fun, ate pizza, stayed up all night. Actually stayed up all night, and then at 7 a.m, I got a phone call. William had never told me about this. Dave didn't tell me about it, but he probably just didn't think about it. At 7 a.m., I was probably just going to sleep. My phone rings, and the guitarist for Sonic Youth was another band that was opening. The guitar tech for Sonic Youth calls me and is like, "Hey, is this Joe Plummer?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Hey, we're all waiting for you in the lobby." And I was like, "For what?" And he's like, "Rehearsal." And I was like, "What do you mean rehearsal?" And he's like, "We got to go to Connecticut to rehearse." And I still didn't know what was going on. I thought it might have been Foo Fighters management or something. I just didn't. I was in a fog. I run downstairs, and all the techs are waiting in the lobby, and we had a rehearsal that day with all of the bands in some big theater in Connecticut before the show at Madison Square Garden. So I show up there. I still don't know anything. Like, where are the drums? And it takes hours, and finally, actually, a couple of the Sonic Youth people helped me out. And I set up a drum set, and then someone from David Bowie's camp comes up to me and is like, "We're going to ask Dave to play drums too. So can you set up a drum set for him and order one? And I was like, I don't even have a phone, like,
Yeah.
anyways, eventually that got taken care of. And they rehearsed, and then I met David Bowie. He thought I was William that afternoon, which was fun for 30 seconds. And then I was like, you want to talk to this guy, not me. And then we did the show the next night and taped Dave's drums down. They were still falling over, and a lot of funny details. A lot of things ensued, but I made it through teching for those. And also David Bowie's drummer was playing too.
Well, that's a great story. So you finally got some sleep. But I mean, so when you went down to the lobby, you're still running on empty at that point.
Totally.
Great.
Just like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on.
Even if I had full sleep, I would not know what's going on with that much pressure. But
yeah.
All right. So next one, a performance which you either played or witnessed. You witnessed this one that altered your musical course, and
Yes.
this was Mark Juliana at Revival Drum's anniversary show, and I believe another fellow friend of the podcast, maybe a friend of yours, Tim Baltus. If it's the same performance, also performed that show.
Yes. And yes, that was the show. I had never seen Mark or heard him play, and I think that evening Jose was like, "Oh, dude, Mark's playing," and I was like, "Cool." And I remember seeing Mark wandering around with a satin baseball jacket, and I was like, "That guy looks cool." And I was on stage right, and I was pretty close to him, and he just started playing. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? How much space can one give me and still just blow my mind at the same time, Mm-hmm. And because I was physically so close to him, I just kept imagining I could feel him thinking about what he was doing. Not that it was like super cerebral or anything, but I just felt like I was just sitting next to him, and the biggest thing that I remember that from is not as much as what he was playing, but what he wasn't playing. I know that's a little cliche, but that's what I took away from it. And I mean, there was like weeks I couldn't stop talking about it. The guy blew my fucking mind. I took a lesson from him last year.
How was that?
It was incredible. I'm as good as him now. He showed me everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a green pill, a red pill. You sell your soul, and one other thing I can't remember. But yeah, I'm just like him now.
What I love about Mark is he's also been on the show, and his influences are almost nothing like he plays. And it's so inspiring because I feel that I grew up... I wouldn't say if I talked to my younger self, I'd be like, you have great taste in music. But it's still a part of my playing now. But knowing that you can still respect all those influences but play nothing like that as an adult drummer gives me a lot of it takes away a lot of insecurity I have about my instincts. So Mark's a kind of a shining light of, you can still do your own thing, but love Matt Cameron, but play like he does, meaning play like Mark, but have all these huge rock drummer influences. I don't mean anything bad against Matt Cameron. I wasn't putting him in the category of bad taste. He's an incredible drummer, just different than what you would assume Mark Juliana plays, is what I meant. But yeah, Mark's he's the dude. He's my favorite living drummer.
So
if I could, and I know you paid money and the people that are listening did not, but what was the biggest takeaway of the lesson you had from him when it comes to your drumming?
When it comes to my drumming?
Yeah.
This class was an improvisation class. And a few of the simple... this is funny because it's not improv at all, but a few of the exercises he suggested... which will like single note simple exercises. I don't have them in front of me right now, but one thing I took away from that, and I do them. I mean, this fucking pandemic has kind of fucked everything up, but I was doing them before the show. They're these simple exercises that are pretty heady. Like more than playing, you're using your brain and trying not to use your brain, and I just saw the light in from how simplicity expands into improvisation, and how it gives you you're playing. There's a pulse, for example, but it's something simple enough to where you can both think and play at the same time. And I thought that those exercises did a really good job at that for me, because I love improvising, and I love improvising with my bands, and I think I'm rather than I'm good or bad at it, I'm pretty comfortable doing it. And I like wheels falling off, and that's in the context of 4/4 rock music I typically play. Mm-hmm. That's what people that are scared to improvise call disasters, is the wheels falling off. And I'm always like, nah, they didn't fall off. They just, well, maybe they fell off, but you can put them back on.
Yeah. Or just repeat it the next bar, and then it's not a mistake. It's good.
So that's the biggest thing I took away, which was it just kind of armed me with another tool to give me confidence when I'm playing and improvising, to just kind of like, there's another synoptic connection with that, where I'm like, oh, now I can kind of think about playing and still play and not think about playing. Mm-hmm. That's confusing. But
no, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mark, it was it's somewhere on YouTube. He was talking about, and I'm going to butcher this, so Mark, I apologize, but he basically was like, don't practice everything. Just get to the point where whatever you want to say, you can execute that. If there's something you want to say and you can't do that, then focus on that. But yeah, it really helps you pinpoint down what to practice. And yeah, a lot of his stuff, like that 7, I don't know the name of it, but it's like the hi-hat and the snare and the bass drum, all 3 together, just the hi-hat, just the snare, just the bass. There's like 7 things. And with the band I'm with, Cannons, I don't have a rack tom. It's like crash ride, kick snare, hat, floor tom. And so I don't have that many surfaces, but just thinking and channeling Mark of how many different sounds you can actually get. Oh, and then cross stick. I mean, there's so many different things you can get from the snare. Very elementary concepts that, you can just switch around the subdivisions, and then that's a whole lifetime of stuff you can work on.
Yeah, and I guess that reminds me, I think I unconsciously did this, but I do it consciously now, is speaking of that sort of sound combination, I like to play with a click. I like to play with kind of a tripped out, reverbed out click. And I'm talking about just playing by myself. I live with a band is fine too. But if I just have a pulse going, it can be a click, it can be a keyboard loop or something, I'll sit at my snare drum and hit 90,000 different ways, and maybe even have it cranked up loud. And then you start hearing the blend of it, and then next thing you know, you're just playing.
Yep.
Without thinking about it.
So you literally put just like verb on a click track and just have it be this kind of ambient thing?
I really do.
That's awesome.
It's fun.
All right, so, and this is the one that I know will change for a lot of people. Maybe it won't for you, but your favorite drummer and how their overall body work affected you.
Current favorite drummer is Tony Allen. I think as much as Juliana, that Tony Allen has given me a license to just be free and go. There's something about momentum with Tony Allen, and I think it's his origin of drumming, which is Nigerian, but probably a lot of English, influences, English rock and stuff. But there's just something about a rolling momentum that he has, that when he gets, when he's playing on an Auburn record or something, sometimes his rolling beat gets cut, and you can still, it doesn't even need to be there. It just gets dropped back in. The thing that has, in the last, it's probably 10 years or so that I've been really into him, is you want something to be like a hook and significant and kind of a groove that sticks in people's brain or butts if you want them to dance.
Yeah.
And that coupled with his sound, and I think his sound is, he probably, not everyone does this, not every drummer does this, but I feel like if he sat down at my drum set, my drums would sound like any Tony Allen drums. I think the way he maybe even does a cross stick and mutes it with his hand. I think it's just his sound. It's a manipulation of the reverbs that come out of drums that I don't know how the fuck he does it, you know? So, you know, and just, it's the whole, all of what I just said is kind of, it's just my kind of vibe. It's just my drumming. It's something I listen to probably every day, some version of him, even if it's remixes. So, yeah, I just can't stop with him.
For sure. Tony Allen. All right, a record that hit you at the right time in your life and represents a big piece of your artistry.
Well, there's a lot, but there's one that goes back to my youth, which I was listening to punk music and starting to play drums all around the same time. And, again, it was punk music, like aggressive, fast punk music, GBH, the Subhumans, you know, other American hardcore and stuff. And then I found the Minutemen, which was on a punk label, obviously, same as Black Flag, SST. And I was also trying to play with these punk records, and I was doing fine. I wouldn't say I was bored, but it seemed like I wasn't a mature young man or anything and could see the future, but I was like, it seems like there's a ceiling on this. And then I heard the Minutemen and Double Nickels on a Dime and George Hurley, and it had the punk energy. It was fast, but it was funky, and it was anything, really. I mean, there was songs he plays with his hands. There's some conga songs. There's lots of side stick stuff, a lot of funk stuff. And that hit me in a way that it just opened up my world to probably every other kind of music that I was not listening to at that point. I was just punk guy.
And they were prolific during that record. There is a lot of tracks on that record.
Yes.
So I have it pulled up right
1 million.
now. Is there any particular song, or I can just arbitrarily pick one?
Pick one. I bet it starts with a cool drum part.
All right. Let's go Toadies. That sounds fun.
That one's fun.
All right, here we go.
With that.
Number 7 on the checklist. Playing stooge, eating the shit. Toadies, using that as a reason for kicking shit.
I do that all the time. Every fourth snare hit, just do the floor tom with it, just to. Yeah.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, and that right there. I mean, again, you could play any song. I can talk about that right there. I did not think that you could leave a kick drum out of a song, and how fucking powerful is that?
I didn't even notice there was no kick drum. That's amazing.
There's no kick drum. I mean, there is, but he starts and there's no 2 and 4 kick until it needs it, and he puts in the 2. I think it's just, I'm 12 years old and I'm like playing that beat with kick snare, you know, just 2 and 4, and then I do it without it, and I'm like, whoa, this is magic. George Hurley.
All right, so let's just go on. You did mention Love Supreme, but for the sake of time, let's just move on to the sound of a particular record. Nothing against Love Supreme, but the sound of a particular record that helped to mold your tuning style. So I do want to kind of focus on this because you play with a lot of bands, and you don't have a sound. What I like about your playing is you have fun with recording techniques and different drum sounds, which is rad. So I know that there's not, this is my sound, the one record. So you gave me a bunch of options, which is understandable. So let's just go to the first one, which is Public Image Limited? Is that how you pronounce
Public
it?
Image Limited. Yeah.
Okay. The album's Flowers of Romance, and the song is Four Enclosed Walls. And it's Martin Atkins on the drums. And I actually had not heard of his name till you sent me this, so I went kind of down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I don't know why I haven't heard of this guy's name. He's played with the best out there. So
Yeah. That Four Enclosed Walls sound I play that at sound check every time. I play
We
that
always got to
beat.
have ours, yep.
And it always sounds best in a big room, but there's something about the reverb they found or is in that room when they recorded it. I've always wanted to, I've attempted to get it. I think the Replicants tried to do it, probably Black Harper Session. But yeah, I chase that. And it's kind of simple, but there's something about it. I think there's close miking, and because he does some crazy triplets, and it sounds like you can hear his head and the room at the same time, and it's a weird mix. I've chased that on and off for years now.
Well, here it is, 4 Enclosed Walls.
Yeah.
Like, what is that sound that's going on right now?
I don't know. Gate, also.
Yep.
Lots of gate.
Yeah. And talk about space. I mean, that's the kind of beat, that's why we all become drummers, is to play that kind of beat in a song.
Yeah. Yeah, and as I realized and forgot about, it's the fucking gate. And I remember not knowing what gate was maybe when I first heard. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't know how it functioned, you know, and the reverse effect of it and gated reverb, etc. But yeah, I didn't. I guess part of the reason I love that so much is I didn't really understand it when I first heard it.
Well, and you can tell he's playing that's a take, because there's parts where the bass drum, there's fluctuations, there's some humanity behind that beat, but it's also so robotic in the way he's executing it, but you can tell it's not a loop.
Yeah.
And it sounds amazing. Yeah, I need to go down a rabbit hole of his playing. I'm excited that you even brought this guy up, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't know him before. I probably know his drumming, of course, but I didn't know his name, Martin Atkins.
Yep.
All right, so next one, legend, and I believe you've actually worked with him in the past, but Dale Crover from the album Houdini by Melvins. So let's just go ahead and play that.
Okay.
Or I guess which song from?
I didn't think about a song.
No worries.
Yep, pick one.
Just going off the fun name. Sky Pup sounds fun.
There we go.
I mean, that right there. That's cool, just going back from the snare to, I'm assuming, the hi-hat he's hitting it, or some sort of metallic thing.
Yeah. That is a ribbon crasher. I don't know if they're still called that, but that is the mysterious sound when they... I had never heard that before either. I was always like, what the fuck is that sound? Now I have like 10 ribbon crashers. I think I recorded in that studio to try to get that sound. Again, it was a room sound. I was a little naive when I was chasing that sound, because what comes from Dale's hands that go to the drums is not achievable for anyone. It's only Dale's the only one that can do it. And but you know, like that kind of small, on that record there's some huge, gigantic deep snare sounds, but that one is like a kind of a 60s sound. He probably is using some rap sticks or something, I feel like. And I guess the versatility on that record of sound is maybe something that I'm realizing is maybe more influential, because there are some really big, cool sounding drum stuff on that record. And I mean, bare minimum, I think we just only listened to Houdini for one tour. That was it. Just Houdini over and over again.
And what was it like working with him, and in what context did you work with him?
Well, we became friends. I don't know how we became friends, but or I can't remember how we became friends, but I think it was the Replicants. And I had wanted to make this drum record based off a Max Roach record called Boom, M''BOOM. And so I wrote 80% of the songs covering Boom. So I recorded drums. I can't approach jazz or Max Roach's drumming ability, style, anything like that. But it was fun just like playing along with it, and then I'm recording it, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. So I kind of wrote all these pieces and then asked Dale and Cody Willis, who was in the Melvins at the time, to play on a couple songs at first, was my idea. And then we just made a drum record together called Hue Time. And working with them on that was amazing. I just went down to LA. I had these pieces. I played them for them. Toshi kind of played some of it back, and then we played with it. And then between the three of us, we just kind of took over. Kyle Crane plays on the record too. Working with him is, I wish I could do it more. I've always wanted to be in Dale's band, but I can't imagine what it's like for Buzz over the last 25 years, because playing with Dale, it's so satisfying. Whatever the playback is from Dale, whether it's playback or you're just playing in the room, is always like, wow, that's cool. And he'll be like, do you like it? Sure. I could do this. Oh man, that's cool too.
Damn it, that's cool too.
So yeah, it was a bit of a dream come true making that record with him and Cody. So I'm kind of hoping we can do it again.
I'll will it into existence for you. It's going to happen.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, dude.
Great.
So Hugo Burnham, which, to bring up the trap set, was the last episode Joe recorded, which I'm not sure why Joe stopped, but I hope he continues because I love Joe's podcast. But
Joe might come to my house today.
Well, tell him he needs to get his microphone back in front of his face.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's Solid Gold by Gang of Four, and
Yes.
of course it's Hugo Burnham on drums. Record came out in 1981. I love Hugo's playing, but yeah, what about this record got to you?
Well, another record that is influenced my playing as much as the sound I was probably chasing for the mid 2000s. That disco, again, gated reverb, punk disco sound, which I still love every time I hear it, even if it's someone like LCD doing it, or Gang of Four, and everything in between. Again, the sound is largely it's the kick, the snare, and the hat, and that's all you need, right? And I just feel like a sound without those being individually mic'd, I feel like just get like one mic over the top of those three instruments tuned correctly is one of the best sounds ever. And you can squash it, and you sometimes don't need it. And it's key if you got the low frequency out of the bass drum. And I have mixed drums before where I have a bunch of mics, but then I concentrate on one mic or overdub one mic of playing the same beat. And it's always been that punk or disco kind of Gang of Four beat, but then you just do an overdub of it and smash it, and it just makes it like so aggressive and fucking dancey and amazing. So I can't imagine that's what they did. I have no idea what they did to make Solid Gold and a couple of their other records, but it's just, again, another irresistible sound that I have. And then the playing, I just ripped it off. So hard, and did a lot of that when I was in Modest Mouse. Me and Jeremiah both. So fun. So fucking fun.
Do you want me to just arbitrarily pick one? Or do you have one in mind that's... okay.
Yeah, I can't remember. Yeah, pick one, please.
All right, I'm going to go with the album starter. I'll go Paralyzed, which is fun for a lot of reasons, actually.
Yeah.
one of the most elementary beats if you were to break it down, but also one of the most badass things you could play, because you don't know where the one is at first. We actually have a segment of the show, or this podcast, that we do every once in a while, called Where's the One, and that song
really?
would be one of them, where it's like, until you really get into it and the bass comes in, you're like, is that, again, similar to the other song we played, is the clicking on the upbeat, the downbeat, what's going on?
Right.
And so there was a band you were in. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but the Coromandel's.
Coromandel's. Yeah.
Coromandel's, and I know on the Late Bloomers record, you recorded the drums on that one, right?
Yeah, I think let's see. I think I recorded all the drums on that. Yeah, we demoed, and then I think I recorded all the drums. Yeah.
Because there's a song called The Project that I really love the drums on that. I'll play it real quick.
All right.
And I'm curious, kind of breaking down the vibe of the drums on that, like how they were recorded.
That one's in my studio, and I have I believe that was one of the first times I was really trying this technique of putting a ribbon mic. So we have the studio, they were direct, recording the drums. It's a small room, but the ribbon room mic was outside of the room in the hallway outside, but it was facing the ground, and it's on the second story of a building, and they're wood floors. Mm-hmm. And it was facing the ground. It was like 2 inches from the floor, and so it would get the kick drum sound on the floor, and then it was capturing the room, and then the rest of it's just some overheads that are getting the room. I mean, it's obviously very roomy. I believe I didn't mix that, but I'm sure that we were trying to get that guitar reverb and the room and the snare reverb pretty matched, a little bit surfy, I guess, but yeah, I'm just hearing that back, that floor technique kind of worked, because it's a big room, but it's just a old wood floor that's reverberating. So
well, for the sake of time, I do want to go to a few honorable mentions, because it was a category that you just want to say their overall playing. And so Sarah Lund from Unwound. Yeah, you said just her groove style in general.
Yeah, and again, going back to some of that punk disco stuff, she was one of the first people that I saw do it in a way that was like a little more laid back and just stuck more of a groove than, say, this is no diss on anyone else who was doing it, including myself at the time, but The Rapture was kind of doing some things like that, and I forget the drummer's name, but he and I's style was like a little more aggressive, and Sarah just has this crazy laid back version of it that's just it's the groove. It's amazing. And I drum tech for her too. I roadied for them. That's why I got to watch her so many times.
And there's some sort of tie-in with Unwound and Replicants, right?
Yeah, Justin, the singer, is the guitarist for Replicants.
Okay. And then Cindy Blackman, the feel of all of her solos.
Yeah, I've been watching a lot of her solos lately, and I'm not. I like solos. I don't think about them that much, but I've been watching her solos so much.
Yeah,
and I'm just digging it.
And then one more, Annika Niles. I think she says it's either Niles or Niles, depending on where you're from. She accepts both, but yeah, Annika Niles.
Okay, Annika Niles. Yes, and I've just found her on Instagram. I'm assuming. I can't remember how else. Yeah, her technical version of a groove is something. That's another thing I try to play with her Instagram videos all the time.
Good luck.
And but it teaches me a lot. Shows me a lot of things I don't know, which doesn't bother me too much. But I love loved her playing. I want to see her play live with anyone. It seems like she plays with pretty big, sometimes pop bands. It seems like, but yeah, I just love her. It's just not technical is not a bad word to me. But if it is for anyone, watch her play, 'cause she's a fucking technical and groovy as fuck.
Yes, she is, man.
Yeah.
So before we go, because I do have to head out, but talk a lot a bit about your podcast tour stories, because that's why I was intimidated today, because you're a great conversationalist. I love I love the podcast. So do a little promo for that, because I definitely want people who obviously enjoy talking about music. You don't just have drummers on the show, so you obviously expand. But yeah, talk a little bit about the show.
Yeah, so I started tour stories while I was in the middle of touring in 2018, I think, maybe 2017, in the middle of touring a ton with Cold War Kids. And I had gathered some stories and was editing them on the road and sharing them with my colleagues at Ruinous Media. And we're like, oh, let's do a podcast. It seems like it'll work. And then Chris and I, one of the Ruinous guys, started editing them together and adding some music and brainstorming some ideas. And it kind of took off. Dale Crover was a drummer. Brian Teasley was our first story. And I think Dale was our second. And I was just out of the blue, I was like, I want to get these my tour stories are funny and ridiculous, but it was always sticking with me, like that the Motley Crue cliche rock stories are fine. They're sometimes fun, but they're not really that important to me as the monotony of touring, for example. And at the same time, I didn't want to get too insider baseball, because it'd be like, insider jokes about backstages isn't going to be fun for people.
Yeah.
So somehow I arrived at gathering stories, and I'm trying to edit so they're largely for everyone. And they're long, and they're short, and they're dumb, and quote unquote boring sometimes. But the boring ones are about being bored, usually. And yeah, and I'm on my 90th show or something, and I have pivoted, if you will, into an interview format as well, due to our involuntary rock and roll break. Now I'm starting to kind of combine them, and guests want to do both. So that's it. That's tour stories / the check-in. But yeah, that's it. And amongst the other podcasts we do at Ruinous, that's my gig.
Yeah, I've tried to be less precious with. I mean, I kind of put myself in a corner by calling this Big Fat Five, but there's so many different episodes and things I want to do that I'm like, well, it doesn't fit the podcast, but it's all a learning process, so it ebbs and flows.
Yeah, with pivoting to the check-in, every once in a while people are like, different show? It's like, I don't fucking, does it have to be? Like, not really.
Yeah.
And I have, in the springtime, I will have a new podcast with Dan Gallucci called Demo-itis. And we've done one episode with James Mercer. We are discussing demo-itis. For people who don't know, it's the feeling you get when you can't achieve the initial demo or writing and recording of a song you're doing. So you go into the studio and you're like, fuck, the magic's gone. I have demo-itis. The demo sounds better. The thing on my phone sounds better. And we discussed that with James Mercer, and he played new slang demos for us, which is crazy. But Dan and I are going to move forward and probably get 6 for a season coming up in the spring of 22.
Is it going to be kind of you play the voice notes kind of thing and just dissect the stems and...
Yeah, that's what we did with James, and the other interviews, we played little clips, and when you can, I mean, there could be a story if you don't have the tapes. or the recordings also, but everything we've done thus far, we've had some recordings to reference. And again, James's new slang demos on a mini tape player are incredible.
I'm sure.
And really funny lyrics, nonsense placeholders. Sure. And it's just I like listening to that episode, in fact.
Yeah.
And we're also, wanting to and typically winding up discussing the environment surrounding it, because that explains it a lot too. And we can get technical, or we can get sort of social and, talk about these things with people's lives at the time. And the reason they recorded it in their kitchen was because their life was like this, So it's really interesting.
Well, Joe, thanks for being on the show, man. This was awesome, and I'm a big fan of your drumming, so appreciate you being on the show, dude.
Thanks, man. It was really fun. I feel like I could talk for a long time. But yeah, thanks a lot. And I think you're traveling around the world, so travel safe.
And that's the show. Be sure to subscribe, and if you're listening on a platform that allows for ratings or reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, which means the show will get better and bigger, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'd be an OG listener that could brag to all your friends. Anyways, also, why don't you go ahead and check out bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and all the socials. Just search for @BigFatSnareDrum and you will find it. This show is edited in part using iZotope RX8 audio editor. It's amazing. So go check that out at iZotope.com. Bye.